100.
No way.
We're live. We're live. Okay, we're live now. Yeah.
I
Give me a
can't
second.
imagine this is episode 100.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a couple of years, I think, every week. So that adds up.
By
Maybe some
episode
of them are
100, I finally linked it now.
exactly. Now you're actually sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. I have been using a lot of AI tools today.
Yeah. Tell me
Uh,
about it.
I used, I'm trying to create a composition of images of people that I know.
Hmm.
And it's just them laying on the ground listening to albums of vinyls. And ChatGPT can't do it. ChatGPT, all it does, the way ChatGPT, the reason they did the Ghibli style is because they've gotten really good at creating a a description of an image so that it can make something that kind of looks like you. But if you ask it to make a photorealistic image of you, it'll kind of look like a person of your race, like basically in hair color,
Hmm.
but it won't look like you. But if it's Ghibli style, it'll or a cartoon, then it will kind of look like you. So that's why
Oh.
they promoted the cartoon style. There are some apps that so I used scenario.com, which is scenario.
The what's it called? I look at the image generation for human avatars on two vectors.
Hmm.
One is for sales. So I'm really interested when what's called an SDR, sales development representative. It's like the first person that you talk to.
Hmm.
There's a lot of data that indicates, like, if you get cold outreach on LinkedIn or on email and you include a picture, that picture needs to be a young woman who's blonde or brunette, but who's not quite a model. So like if you were using a rating scale, somewhere between like 6 and 8 rather than 8 and 10.
Yeah,
And so
because they
there's
won't
like,
believe it if it's too beautiful.
yeah, exactly. Well, and the other thing is the prospects sort of like try to hit on the person as opposed to like listening to the speech. And so
Okay.
all these guys have been trying this for
A lot of people have like networks of 200 LinkedIn profiles of fake
yes.
young
Oh yeah,
women
hundreds of
who do
them.
this.
That's how you do scraping as well. And yeah, it's really fascinating, that whole industry. And then now, I don't know if you've seen the latest where it's like you put on a Mission Impossible mask, like AI style,
I've
and
seen
they're like
those
showing
masks.
lights like all around their face, and it's like running with PyTorch like locally, and it looks so good. It's like a man. Pretty soon I'll show up and I'll be like a brunette or something instead of a dude.
Wait, so they'll do the whole video call with live voice editing as a woman?
Yeah, I haven't seen live voice editing yet, but I've seen the like put on like Elon Musk's face or Robert Downey Jr.'s face or Angelina Jolie, and
Yeah.
the mask is so good and so quick that like you can go like this and you can't tell that it's not that person.
I don't get it. It's a green mask, or is it a mask of is it a plastic mask of the face?
No. It's an AI filter that changes your face to that person's face, and it looks photorealistic.
Okay, they don't put anything on their face like marker because they could put like
That's right. Yeah, no,
green
nothing.
markers on it.
No. That would be funny though.
That
And
would
then
make it work even better.
the other one is sort of
Well,
like
there was a famous case actually 2 or 3 years ago where a congressman was being impersonated on Zoom. That was very
interesting.
famous. Yeah, he put out an alert. He's saying, "Hey, there's literally someone impersonating me. Watch out." And that happened 3 years ago. So I mean, this has been happening already.
So in the first AI generated political ad was on YouTube. It was for Biden's campaign in 2020. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, this is crazy. They pulled it like 2 days later because people were noticing. And
I didn't hear that.
I can't like find any data on it, which drives me. But I saw it and I was like, whoa, this is so crazy. And then the other area that I follow the faces is that
you got to start saving this stuff.
I know, right? You got to click it and all that. I'm getting there. Adam Townsend told me I got to keep a log. So what I was saying was Instagram is a pipeline now for OnlyFans. So if you're a male, then you see a lot of these girls and they do all kinds of stuff to try and get people to go to their OnlyFans. And they're very sophisticated at customer acquisition because it's a highly commoditized product, but like super valuable. And so watching those people get eaten by AI, that entire industry and that pipeline has been, first it was the filters, and that now it's like, it's not even clear if you're looking at human beings anymore. And so that's sort of, for me, the state of the art and the photorealistic human.
Or you meet people that have done so much plastic surgery and makeup that looks like it's fake and AI generated, but actually that's a real person that exists and
walks
around.
What would be interesting to me is, in the Matrix, they talk about your digital self-image. It would be interesting for me, women already do this thing on LinkedIn where they'll leave a picture up from 10 years ago. It's just like the best picture they ever took in their life is their LinkedIn headshot. It would be interesting to me if we started to see that in all of their digital avatars. And so you're not talking to a woman that is completely different looking from the actual person, but it's like this is how I looked at 23 or 25, even though they might be like 43 or 45. And so I would be interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, the plot of have you read Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace? So the plot of that had people, I predicted all this in the 90s, that people would create these fake, they would have makeup filters, and then eventually they would replace them with fake avatars, and then eventually everyone would just walk around with their fake online with their fake avatars.
Yeah, totally.
So the other tool I was using was Kling. So I tried using Gemini for this. So first I tried to use Google Gemini to make an image, and it was like, sorry, I can't do that. Didn't give a reason.
Like, maybe it violated the neutrality clause or something. The Klingon.
Well, it's just ChatGPT. I tried to generate something of people, and I tried to get like Pearl Jam album in the background, and then it kind of did that. But then the second time it said, sorry, I can't do that. I can't use like actual artists. I'm like,
so this is
like kidding? I can't even mention other artists and albums and things like that. Yeah, what?
This is like a scrapbook project that you're trying to do?
No.
Can you share your screen and show us one?
Similar to what you're saying, sales. So I'm putting together a feeling of what it's like to use Hangout, using images and video. So, and then I can also personalize it to every investor.
Yes. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Right. So it's a good sales pitch, right? What if you have like personalized every video to the investor?
What you have to do is you have to figure out who they secretly envy and put that person that they envy in their own audience.
In their own audience.
Like if you're doing like a conglomerate, like a picture of an investor with a bunch of other investors or other people, and they're listening to music, it's like you find who their favorite band is, and so that's who they're in the composition with.
That's a good one. I think like so the composition I was thinking is the feeling of Hangout is you're on a bedroom floor, laying back, listening to music, kind of like the intro, Dr. Dre intro and Straight Outta Compton. Okay. So imagine you're just like hanging out with and maybe there's another friend also, you're like sharing music. But I like your image as well. So imagine it's the VC as a DJ on stage, and then there's a bunch of people in the audience.
Because they all want to be like that Goldman Sachs CEO,
it's like their wife. It's like you said. What did you say? They're enemies.
No. They're envious, right? They're envious of other people, like like.
Oh, like Elon Musk in the audience or something.
Yeah, or something. Okay. Like,
right. So them DJ.
I don't want to shade at any individuals, but it's clear that some guys, really look up to certain people. So it's like a way to neg them, right? Like those people are closer to the stage than they are.
So then I put you can do deep research to have deep research figure out what someone's favorite artist is. So I can put them also imagine like you're listening to vinyl with like Will.i.am or Drake, right? And that's also their favorite artist, right? But then you put that into like a photo of what that feels like. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's them. And now they really start to get it.
It's really interesting. Back 10 years ago when I did sales, we would, write handwritten notes or some kind of object that we would send them in person, like physical, so that they had a remembrance of our SaaS conversation, right? Because this is a guy at the beginning of a conversation that might be worth $4 million a year to the company. That was my biggest sale. And so sending them like $100 worth of junk so that they remember you, super personalized, made a lot of sense. And now what you're talking about, because you're handwriting the note and you're including something or whatever. What you're talking about is we actually even did a thing where at Fastly we gave out Apple Watches. So like if you took a meeting,
but like with their initials on the Apple Watch.
Yeah, some were engraved for sure. And then we would just send them out because it was like $500 and our customer acquisition cost was like $5,000 or something. So $500 was really cheap. And what you're talking about is doing that digitally for people. Now you're talking about it in the investors, but I could see, you know, right now when you have advertising on Facebook or display or whatever, it's like some pithy statement, and you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of interesting. But I could imagine in the future where it's actually me using the product. I think it'd be creepy if it was like, you know, my wife in the dress, like they want me to buy a dress, and so they show a picture of my wife in the dress, but I'm sure people will try it out. Right. And so I'm actually,
there's an app that does that, not maybe your wife, but yourself.
Yeah, for the record, I don't wear dresses at this period in my life. But.
I mean, the app is for the subject who's looking at it.
Yeah,
it could be.
I'm just talking about like advertising switches from impersonal aspirational to personal aspirational.
So my journey was, I tried ChatGPT, it had some issues. Gemini was completely useless. And then I saw that they had a video model that everyone was raving about. So I tried to look it up, Veo 2. And then that was very confusing. It said like, there's 2 different ways you can use Veo 2. One of them was like a help doc, so that didn't work. And the other one was another thing and then that was actually a wait list. So that's also not available. So then I was like, okay, what? The wait list had a survey. And the survey was like, do you use any of these other video generation tools?
That's
and I was like, oh, great. These are your best competitors.
Amazing.
Great. Now I know exactly. Okay, which one's first? Kling AI. Okay, let's try that one. Thank you for telling me what to use instead. So Kling AI, I had heard of that as well. I heard that's the best. It's from China. And I went to the Kling AI, and it was very easy to sign up. Interestingly, Chinese apps, DeepSeek as well, have a trend of not letting you sign it up with any email. You have to sign up with a Gmail address or sign in with Google. They can't control the spam problem, and they're relying on Google to limit people's accounts.
That makes sense.
Yeah. They're having a problem with identity globally. So that's an interesting.
Wow, I wonder if we know anyone who's been talking about identity for the last 15 years online.
Yeah.
It's like, we have a friend who started a company. We have multiple like identity. It's like, we had this conversation. If this is episode 100, we had this conversation around episode 20. Remember, we were talking about the only thing that the bank does in the future is identity.
Yeah. I ran identity at Lyft, and so it's a hard problem, and it's a hard problem globally. Crypto thinks they want to solve it, but they don't know the first things about. A lot of them don't know how to start it. But anyway, so Kling AI, that actually ended up with some decent clips. Oh, I tried Sora as well because I have a ChatGPT Pro premium subscription or plus, whatever. It was pretty scary. So I clicked a 20-second generation, and it had like all these image and video things create dismembered bodies and like heads coming out of other heads. It's very wild. It's just disturbing actually to watch it. Like I have to like kind of take a breath. And Sora is very bad. It doesn't follow the prompt. It has this dismembered stuff. It's like spinning. It's kind of ugly.
Yeah.
Even with why. Prompts. Yeah, why is Kling so much better? You know, China's just beating America.
Why is it dismembered? Because like presumably the training set wouldn't be like dismembered.
Yeah, not enough.
Unless they like
neurons globally training. Like if it's very local, you would see dismemberment because it would transition, and it wouldn't have the whole context of, oh, you always need a human body that's whole. It obviously does have dismembered in the sense of, you know, your body's, you know, above a desk, right? So it gets cut off at the desk, you know, and like that's wood. So if you're on the floor, that's dismembered. Maybe it doesn't make sense.
Also wood, so you could just be like, okay, fair enough.
So it's there is data about it, but if you don't have enough neurons and like globally optimizing it, you're gonna have problems.
I also wonder to what extent. So I have been trying the different agents of Manus, and then there's a new one called.
Oh, do you have access to Manus?
I tried it through a buddy's account, and then somebody told me you could use Scout.new. So I started using Scout.new, which is like a US version, or claims to be, and it's fucking impressive.
Really? What a multi-agent step process?
I had it. I forget. So I had it do a research task. I had it build a SaaS app architecture for a real-time like call center app where basically like you run call centers all over the world, thousands of them, and you need to know in real time what people are talking about. And it like designed the entire architecture, every single component, all the technologies that would use down to the libraries for every single component, and then how to organize all of the files like in the file system. So it was like a architecture and then one level below, and then it did that in like 45 seconds. I was like, when we did apps like this in the past, that exercise to get the first version, not saying get the right version, but to get the first version usually took a few weeks. And this thing did it in 45 seconds. I didn't go through and validate engineering wise that it makes sense. But I scanned it and I was like, this is really impressive. And you could definitely see, you know, starting from there and trying to get an MVP from that. Not necessarily vibe coding an MVP, but actually writing an MVP. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but when I see these suggestions, a lot of times that's enough for me to get going. Like I don't necessarily need, because like it's for me the programming, because I don't do it as like a 24/7 thing. It's like a hobby. The thing that I don't like is that I have to start in like with a new API docs or new framework docs, and then there's just like a learning curve that I don't like getting over. But if the AI makes a suggestion at the beginning of that learning curve, then I kind of get into it, and then I can do it. And so I find
it really helps you kick start it.
Yeah,
I found it helpful too.
Makes me feel better about it, you know, because obviously, like, it's stupid. I had to do something with FFmpeg last year, and at first I tried to vibe code with FFmpeg. That was a huge mistake. Okay. But I remember that I had worked on the real-time packager at Fastly back in the day, like when we first did mobile-to-mobile video, and that product became Periscope, and then this is actually based on that too. And I remember messing around in FFmpeg, and it's like the lowest level video software, and everything is built on top of it.
Yeah. So anyway, I used FFmpeg this morning based on ChatGPT telling me the command to transfer audio.
Right.
Yeah, it's super easy.
So I, tried to vibe code up an interface to it, and it just didn't work. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is FFmpeg. This is not like impossibly difficult. It's pretty well documented. And then I just went into it, and I found that the AI in the direction is much better than trying to like vibe code something. So anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people are getting walls with vibe coding pretty quickly. Like I mentioned to you, I was saying like 1,000 lines. If you get into a loop, it's usually impossible for it to get out of the loop, I find. What did people? So they had a game competition, like who can make the vibe code the best game in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And they had some winners, and I checked out the winners' videos, and they were like pretty bad. They looked bad. They were very simple.
There were like some very basic versions of like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D that I saw that looked pretty good. I don't know. I didn't play them though.
Yeah, it's weird to say like copying, say, Doom, because the Doom code is open source. Like you can just fork it and run it. You don't need to zoom code it. Yeah, I mean, if you vibe code it, it would just be replicating the source code theoretically.
So I actually think this is a good distinction between an agentic workflow and a single prompt. So you do a single prompt and you want it to like spit out a game, and that seems like not a thing. But if you can have an agentic workflow where first you build this, and then you build that, and then you build this, and there's sort of like checkpoints, human in the loop checkpoints, or gates all the way through. That seems a lot better. And the agentic workflow that we were working on, I don't know if I remember 2 weeks ago, I was like, yeah, I'm super excited. Like this is working. Obviously we hit the fucking, the first 90% takes 90% of the work. The last 10% takes 90% of the work.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And the problem becomes like exponentially fractal and difficult, and that's where we're in right now. But there's been a lot of really good learnings about how to run these multi-agentic workflows, and we see a path. We see a path out of the problem that we're in, and I'm just like, this is crazy cool. I mean, the proof will be in the pudding next week or this week or whatever.
Okay. But, well, it reminds me of what Brian Kernighan, our professor, used to say. If you code it up with all of your intelligence. So debugging is 10 times harder than coding.
At least.
So if you code something with all of your intelligence, then you need someone 10 times more intelligent to debug it when you inevitably hit bugs.
Which is why you want to code it as simple as possible, kids.
Yeah. Yeah, you wanna be very clear about the simplicity of the architecture, because you're gonna have to debug it, and by definition, the AI isn't intelligent enough to debug it because it's equally intelligent as it is.
The thing that's making it is not. Yeah, so that I'll give an example that when I used to interview programmers more than 10 years ago, it was like novices will comment their code, intermediates will not comment their code because it's obvious, and then experts will like write almost the exact same comments as the novice, not because they don't understand the code, but because they know like 2 years later some poor bastard has to read their code, and so they want to have comments in there. And so it was a really good filter. Like, how do you feel about comments and unit tests and all this kind of thing? And, oh, we don't need that, my code's brilliant, like here it is in one line in Perl, which you could like, I wrote this in one line, usually it's 8 lines, and I'm like, I prefer the 8 lines because then I can actually see like what's going on.
Yeah, code is read 100 times more than it's written. So you have to spend a lot more time. But that's the thing about, interestingly, about AI and agents, you end up having to, the best thing isn't to just to have them do everything in one shot, but it's to kind of use the same workflows we have in our companies, where it's like, oh, make a PRD, okay, then write this, then write tests first, okay, now then write this, and you want it to go through all the flows of doing all that. Or like, or if you're making a movie, you want it to like create the storyboard first, and then describe the storyboard, and then describe and do the whole thing that hundreds of people do in a movie separately, and then before you start actually composing the shots. That's a lot more work. Instead of just one shot, like just have the text and create the music.
Yes, 100%. I don't think.
Do you want a customized version of yourself in a dress or doing something?
Not in a dress, but yeah, whatever you want to think up.
I'm curious to make something and then see what your emotional reaction to it is.
Okay.
Like,
I mean, if I'm going to be disembodied, it'll probably be like grotesque. My emotional reaction will be disgust.
So I found scenario.com or a couple other ones that do this training are good. One problem with scenario.com is that it can only do, because they're using LoRa, they can't really do multiple characters. I want to have like 2 characters next to each other, and I can't really do that. So yeah, I'm finding it a bit difficult.
What else have you seen? So I showed scout.new. You should try it out. It's cool.
Yeah, so we'll put up Kling.ai. So this is Kling. It is, by the way, we have 81 viewers live now. It's more than we've ever had. I think.
Rock on, party on, Wayne. All these people are like bored out of their minds at their office job.
Kling.ai, it's a really, it generates many seconds of video, and it turns out to be really, it works relatively well. They put a lot of work into it, and I'm excited for Sora to be as good, but it's not as good right now. The US is really behind on AI video generation. The confusing thing to me is I don't know what people are using this for. Like, what are people doing with this right now? Because it seems like a lot of people talking about it.
Porn. Is it like custom? So like on OnlyFans, there's this entire marketplace for dudes to sit there and pretend that they're the girls. And so if you could record a live video of the girls talking to those guys, then that would be like super valuable, and you'd make a lot of money.
It takes a couple of minutes to generate the videos.
Well, you can pay like $10 for a custom video, right? So
yeah,
it takes a couple minutes, and you have 50 cents in costs.
You can tell it's fake. Let's just put it that way. You have the disembodiedness, the movements are a bit fuzzy, Today you can tell. I don't know if that will be true later. The other thing I've heard that you can do is take a video and do a face swap. It tends to work pretty well if you want to put someone's face into it.
Yeah, I think all these things are being used for dark patterns.
Interesting. I think they block it usually.
Well, so this is like, do you remember McAfee? He was like famous for making his antivirus software, and all of the computer viruses at the time, like basically were created in Santa Clara and San Jose for like by McAfee employees. And then like it creates
what?
Like, yeah. So like there was a period where when McAfee was doing his antivirus and then they would trace back the lineage of these viruses, they would all like emerge from hackers that worked at McAfee. And so, like on one hand, you could say like these people were, writing.
Oh, you mean he's like hiring gray hat hackers? Like he finds the hackers, hires.
I don't know. I don't know the directionality, like the causal relationship. Like you could say McAfee was writing hacks. That's what he always claimed, is that he used McAfee antivirus to hack companies that installed it. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that it was also like the credit card fraud capital of the world was also the Bay Area at one point, because it's where all of the credit card fraud, because Visa was here, etc. The people that were fighting the fraud were based. And so anyway, the pattern that I see here with the AI videos is basically the people who are on the state of the art with the AI videos are using them in these dark pattern places like OnlyFans, and they're highly monetizable, and they're trying to take that non-commercial technology use case and trying to make it commercial. And so like I think that's driving a lot of the
hacker thing. Reminds me of like 10 or 20 years ago, the NSA accidentally leaked their hacking tools and all the automated tools that like let people hack things, and then they were like, oops, and then obviously tons and millions of teenagers were using those tools to hack a bunch of companies. And
yeah, there's always like multiple theories on that, right? Like maybe they wanted all these companies to upgrade, so they released it.
Yeah, I don't know if open sourcing is the best way to do that.
Or maybe like another nation state got like angry at the NSA because they famously made some mistakes that caused chaos for people, and so they might have like hacked them and given out their tools. Because the cybersecurity thing is that there's no defense, there's only offense. So everybody has really, really great offensive weapons, but nobody has basically any defense. And so you're just
defense is like using Rust, right? Using a memory safe language to write code in.
I just learned, and I'm not going to. There's a really large company that makes these, and they have like hundreds of thousands of computers in their supply chain, and those computers have never been hacked, which I think is a really interesting. And I talked to the guy who set it up, and he's like, yeah, this is why. And I was like, man, that is a really interesting solution to that problem. Because more and more we're hearing about supply chain and infrastructure computers getting hacked, and sort of like adopting the best practices from industry from 20 years ago might actually mitigate that. And I just
what's the mitigation?
Well, so that's kind of like their proprietary information, but basically they thought about the problem differently.
Okay.
And is basically how I could get there. And it's just because like right now, the state of the art is that you have a bunch of agents that listen on the computer for patterns of processes. So like the way antivirus works is you create a honeypot, you capture a virus, you make a signature of that virus to see how it behaves, and then you push out that signature to your antivirus software. Yeah. So the antivirus software, insofar as it's kept up to date, is always reactive to like the second level of attack. So the first level of attack, you just get owned, right? So there's like journalists or the nation states just kind of like own people, and then eventually those viruses get into the honeypots, and then they make a signature from it, and they push those signatures out to all their antivirus. And the state of the art in sort of like computer supply chain stuff is to have an agent that sits on all those computers and looks for anomalous behavior. So like, for example, if you have a computer that runs a sewage system or the pumps on a nuclear power station, it should behave in a pretty consistent way. And so if it deviates from that way, then you can use machine learning or AI to identify that there's a pattern interrupt. And that would be like how I would think that some company was securing their manufacturing hardware supply chain, especially because it's in Asia, across dozens of countries. So like you would think it would be very vulnerable, and they like totally sidestepped the entire problem. And I was like, that is really brilliant.
There was a famous Bloomberg article that said that they were already owned, that there was already a chip being attached to Apple computers that was already getting owned.
Yeah, well, I mean, the famous line from a bunch of my friends is they would go to China and their laptop would go through the X-ray machine, and like by the time it came out the back, it had like hardware attached to it.
That's why at Facebook back in 2012 they were saying don't bring any hardware to China. They were already
like so crazy. It was like disassembled. They like put a card on
everything decades ago. I don't know why we weren't talking about this earlier.
Yeah, so this is actually a really interesting thing. I don't know if you saw that the Stanford Review, some kid did an article. How are we doing on time? Some kid did an article about how the Chinese are doing IP theft at scale from Stanford. And I don't know if you remember Princeton 20 years ago, but it was like every day you could look at the network traffic and it was going to Shanghai in the middle of the night. So I was like, why are we talking about this 20 years later? I think that's always the interesting question.
Well, what does academia matter? They publish everything already.
I don't believe they publish everything. No, I don't think that's true.
But they patent things. They write papers.
So there's like a bunch of technologies. So like, for example, I was aware of a technology that was made at Princeton that was published, and it was a particular kind of optic, and then the optic sort of disappeared. And then I checked with a buddy at DARPA, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're familiar with that entire tree of."
Oh right.
And I was okay. So there's like a lot of like.
That's right.
Stuff, and then if they get to,
it's like what Andreessen said: if there's an interesting technology, they'll make the whole tech tree disappear.
Yeah, and I didn't believe when Andreessen said that. The only reason why I believed that it was true, because I'm like you, I'm like the incentive for the researchers is to publish, so they would just publish. I didn't believe that was true, except that I had this example where I was at the school and they were talking about this optic, and I was like, man, this is really cool. You could use this to do blah 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 in space. Yeah. And then like it disappeared and I never saw it again.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so clearly this happens. And so it makes sense to me that these institutions would be compromised, and China's been doing it from virtually day one.
Got it. So you're saying they catch things even before they start to become classified.
Yeah, well, there was this, I think there was something called.
It makes sense. So there are secret patents. The NSA has secret patents that are classified that apparently they can patent things but not have them be published.
Yeah, well, like there was another one that was called, I think it was called the Kavasi ruling, and it dealt with lithium-ion cobalt batteries. So that was a technology that was developed in the United States, I want to say around MIT, and the research assistant took that from MIT and started making it in China, and then they started shipping those batteries out in the powertrain from various cars. And then in like when the hybrids first started, there was like a lawsuit because the US side wasn't allowed to use lithium ion, that particular chemistry battery in cars because it's IP protected. But like Toyota or somebody was selling cars in the US with those batteries that were IP protected. And they're like, where the hell did this come from? And it turned out that it was the research assistant had gone to China. And so then there was like a court case about it. And I remember that, and I was like,
they didn't even know.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and yeah, exactly. On the China side, they don't even know that it was stolen, right? Because it goes through so many hands and gets copied in so many places. Yeah. And I learned some more stuff about AI.
So what was the outcome of the case? Toyota had to pay, or
I think it was basically settled off market, which is basically like, yeah, too bad, so sad. So like IP, I think is great insofar as you can. So I sort of feel this way about a lot of technologies. So when people are like, hey, I made this like really cool national security technology, it's going to change everything. I'm like, okay, if it's below a certain threshold of use, then you can patent it and make money. But above a certain threshold of use, like all the laws just kind of get thrown away.
Let's talk about IP. So this is an important one. So the head of the Copyright Office wrote that the way that companies are scanning music is inappropriate for training.
That's Did like she get fired after writing this, by the way?
And then the day after Trump fired her. So the word on the street, even from everybody was talking about even before this last week, is that Trump is like super okay with everyone training on everything.
Well, so remember, Elon's been there the whole time. That's a big problem
for music. Because of Elon, I guess. Yeah, maybe Elon's
been there the whole time. And so the question is like, did Elon just be like, remember, he's like, I think we should just get rid of all IP, whatever, because obviously that benefits him enormously.
It benefits him. He doesn't have any IP. So he would like to so people are worried. Everyone in the music and people who create content are super worried that we're gonna not have any more. It seems like an awful world we live in where humans' outputs are no longer copyrighted, but people like make shitty AI slop constantly, and then we're all eating shitty AI slop because we can't pay for like people to live off of real art.
Yeah,
sounds awful.
I sort of feel that way about custom wood furniture right now versus like IKEA furniture. And you've heard me talk about this multiple times, which is that like when there's no more market for something.
What's Waldman's website, by the way?
Oh yeah, they make the tables.
We should plug it.
Gaming tables.
Yeah.
There's no way Waldman's listening to this right now, though.
Well, we can plug it, and then like Wormwood Gaming found it.
Yeah, Wormwood Gaming. Yeah, so we have a buddy who
decided... I searched Waldman Furniture Game, and it came up.
And it came up. That's awesome.
Google actually found it. I was surprised.
It's because there's no keywords on it, right? Yeah, I don't.
So this is great custom furniture table. This is not an ad, not paid to support this. Made in the USA.
What do you think about
USA manufacturing?
what do you think about the idea of diffusion?
Actually, I have a manufacturing. So during the pandemic in 2020, I was saying to everybody before it was cool, you should wear masks. Obviously, masks can help. And then I saw there's a problem with supply chain in 2020. I said, hey, why aren't we manufacturing masks in the US, right? It's a key thing that hospitals need. And so I started promoting companies that there was one guy starting a mask manufacturer here. I was saying, oh, we should buy American, all this stuff. And the response on Twitter and all of my Facebook, everyone was like, no, who cares? Who cares if it's manufactured? Like no one in 2020, 0 people cared about manufacturing in the US. Again, so it's really a big change. I just want to say it's like a really big change that people are talking about.
Yeah, well, I think all of those people are always.
And Trump was president when I was saying this, by the way.
Yeah, I think there's a big. These are the same people that are like, no, we shouldn't. Free trade takes care of this, right? There's like the exact same people. And then when we learned that all the N95 masks, like China was like, no, we're not going to sell you the high quality ones. You can have the KN95, which is not the same level of quality.
But China makes only KN95, right?
No, India makes only KN95. China has, to get an N95 masks in the US, you have to have FDA certified like equipment and setup. And the thing is, if it comes out of alignment, which is what was happening, is they were running it too much without doing the regular maintenance. And so the fabric weave or whatever wasn't at the certified level anymore, but then they kept branding it and selling it as N95. And there was no one on the regulator side that was going to be like, actually, it's not N95 anymore. So they just sort of stopped telling people, which is awesome. If you're like actually need an N95 mask, like in a surgical context or something significant, not like some random guy on the street who's going to get COVID, like, because they coughed in his eye, right? Because you're not wearing like an eye shield.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was like 3 or 4 machines and 3 or 4 manufacturing lines in the entire world that made N95 masks, and 3 of them were in Wuhan, China.
Oh,
I remember
in Wuhan.
Yeah, Wuhan is one of the largest PPE manufacturers in the world.
It's like a biotech city. They make the viruses, they make the masks.
This is like, that's what I'm talking about.
It's the same as cybersecurity.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same thing. Right.
That's why most businesses are rackets like this. They create the problem and the solution. Like Apple's gonna sell like iPhone addiction drugs soon.
Oh, really? Is that a thing? They're gonna buy like a pharma company and do it.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting the help.
Yeah. No, I wanted to get back to the IP. So last time we talked about IP, you and I had talked about how you could create a synthetic data set that basically mirrored the phonemes, for lack of a better term, of the copyrighted works that wasn't copyrighted. Is that sort of the state of the art in your experience of how people are still doing this, or they just really don't care about IP and they're just flaunting it?
They just don't care. They are just copying it. Yeah. A lot of people on the music side, especially. And Suno's in a big lawsuit for millions of dollars with labels. It's a big problem.
Who's in a lawsuit?
Suno AI. Yeah, they generate a lot of people apparently like their music. It's
I heard of like an AI generated song from somebody's tweet the other day. Like they just took his tweet and like put it to country music, and it was about as good as most of the country music that I hear. So
yeah. So there's some genres that work pretty well with it. It's just I don't know. If we're entering a world where all the IP is getting ignored, it just seems bad. It just seems like we're entering a less good world. But maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. It's just yeah.
It's bad if the AIs are never able to create things that are good. If they're ever able to copy but like a slightly worse version, then I agree with you. It's bad.
Okay, but if it's making something real, then we just give up and just let AI create everything.
No, what will happen is it will be like I said, like wood furniture. Like the people that do it, they do it as a craft. And it's not. And if it's going to be so, like for example, on YouTube, there's a guy that I watch. He does these tables, and it started with epoxy tables. I think it's called Blackstone Studios or something like that. But I'd have to look it up. So don't.
We just broke 100 viewers.
Right. So anyway, he makes these tables, and the tables are $12,000. So they're too expensive for anyone to actually buy. But he sells all kinds of courses around the tables, like, like how to get good at making epoxy and how to like all this stuff. Right. And so I think a lot of these art forms that people do from like a personal passion perspective, they'll monetize sideways. It's kind of like how all of music is monetized through live events and merchandising now.
Sideways.
Which is how the Grateful Dead sort of originally did it. And they were the pioneers. But like Taylor Swift, if you think about it, she's not really making the bulk of her money from songs being listened to, which is what it would have been in the 90s, right? If you look at like Britney Spears as an equivalent, it's like
she just charges like mortgage house amounts for a concert.
Yeah, well, and like how much of that is the secondary market as well? But you could just, it's a multi-billion-dollar revenue tour. And again, it's this bifurcation. So you're using the digital and AI tools. The people at the top are accruing a lot of the money in the power law. And the people
you'll just make art. It'll all be free, and then you'll get paid to shake someone's hand. It'll be $1 million to shake someone's hand.
Yeah, I think so. Right. Or like, our buddy Roby, he's a magician. He does like live musical events, live magic events for people. And he gets hired at, whatever his rate is. Let's call it $10,000 an hour. It's not, but let's say that's what it is. And there's obviously like other artists that he comes across, whether it's a fire dancer or like an actual famous artist. Like I remember you hear these stories of it's going to cost $500,000 to have some, artists perform live for your event. And I think that, which is also like very Lindy, right? Where like 500 years ago, people would pay to have the like troupe of artisans play at their dinner, the rich king or whatever. And that was how those people ate for the week. And then the week leading up to that event, they would like play in the town square, whatever. And like nobody cared. But then they had to do like their, event for the king.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like you'd have
you mean patronage? You're talking about patronage.
Yeah, patronage, right? So you'd have these traveling.
That's a very unequal feudal society. It seems a bit bad.
Well, I mean, that's what all these that's what all these AI people are pushing for, right? It's fundamentally feudalism.
Well, Sam was pushing UBI, but yeah, I guess it's still fundamentally
UBI is
feudalistic.
Feudalism.
Yeah, that's true.
It is fundamentally feudalism.
Yeah, because once you have UBI, you'll just like wean people less and less on that, which is kind of what's happening with wage stagnation and inflation now anyway.
Yeah, there's a bifurcation, and then there's a tremendous acceleration among the wealthy. I mean, if you look at home prices in the United States in particular, but also in Dubai and Japan and London and some of these places that aren't, overrun with crime, they're exceeding inflation by a huge amount.
The income is exceeding inflation?
The rate of acceleration in the pricing for some jurisdictions is exceeding inflation by a lot.
The price of apartments?
Like luxury home prices in Southampton and Miami are in certain neighborhoods are accelerating faster than the speed of inflation.
So small number of people are absorbing all of the benefits of the inflated prices.
That's right. Yeah. They're using their capital as like a way, because like labor is increasingly becoming capital.
Mm-hmm. Does it make sense to be buying real estate when the population is not giving birth to new people and immigration is going down? And
so I don't agree with that statement. The population is not giving birth to new people. I think that humanity had sort of like a steady state population growth until the Industrial Revolution, where we had like an explosion, a Cambrian explosion of people. And we're actually regressing to the mean in terms of population growth. The people that are in our network are very excited about having kids. They have 5 kids, 6 kids. It's not uncommon to hear people talk about that. Extremely bullish for the future. And they're creating their own private communities. So this was one of the big things that I've seen is, if you'll remember when Twitter had a lot of censorship, people started doing group chats. And I remember the first group chat was when Trump 1, he did the Muslim ban, and all of the Silicon Valley companies got on the same group chat to talk about how they were going to respond legally. And so the amicus brief that went to the Trump admin in like January, February of 2017 had like Apple and Google and Microsoft all signed at the same time. And so like the idea that their lawyers would agree to the same thing at the time was unheard of. And now it's very obvious that everyone is in a group chat together. And there's, even the government now, you could say, is like a group chat run thing. And this was this.
Yeah, everything's just a group chat. The UN is just a group chat.
Exactly. And you're like, am I in all the right group chats and blah, blah, blah. And
a union is just a group chat of the workers.
Alpha around being in a group chat, and then the group chats like collude together to change the market dynamics for different things.
That's why EU wants to monitor all group chats.
Yeah, maybe. And
that's
so
why the NSA is already monitoring all group chats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you saw what happened with Telegram guy. Anyway, so what I think is interesting about that is we're starting to see that physically as well. So the gated community is making a big comeback, and the gated community looks like, we're going to have a family farm sort of deal.
Sorry, baby's waking up. Gated. Yeah, I think, I don't know. I'm with Moxie Marlinspike that I want Signal to be a secure messenger that has an option to be safe. The proposal I had is actually to tunnel 2 nation states messengers together. So you would tunnel a message through Signal and through WeChat, and that way you're encrypted from both of them, unless they cooperate, which obviously they're not going to do that for one person.
I'm sure that's how it works. Like totally, that you can't have an out of band like hardware IC on your phone that can like decrypt whatever's on the screen. It's like,
oh yeah, if they screw your,
this is like totally bullshit, right? Like every single one of these things has a backdoor that
certain
people can access.
You're right.
Read whatever's on the screen. It doesn't matter about
the Michael. There could be a hardware level, device level hack. Okay, so now take 2 phones. I have 2 phones. Put them in series. Have one flash, data to the other one, and then encrypt between 2 different chats on 2 different devices. Through that.
I do think it's really.
But you need 2 different devices owned by 2. You need like a Huawei and an iPhone.
I think it's really interesting to look at the way that NIST has asked people to do post-quantum encryption. And so there's like different ways of mixing the entropy creating functions to create the post-quantum keys.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of like researchers were like, hey, shouldn't we do it like this? And like, no, don't do it like that. Do it like this.
Well, they said don't put classical encryption inside your quantum encryption.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, okay,
easy.
Cool.
Like, wouldn't it be hard to prove that it's as secure and more secure?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, don't do that. Don't roll your own crypto. It's like, what do you mean? It's just
yeah, right. You're like, okay, we see you guys.
Yeah.
It's hey, you guys. All right. Anything else that we should touch on with AI?
There's
the largest AI application companies are still to be built.
Yeah, it's like 1995.
I think it's like 97, but yeah.
Yeah, 97 there were, yeah, you think now is 97? Yeah, I mean it could be 95. I don't know, who knows? Google wasn't created until 99.
When did what's his face Greenspan say irrational exuberance? I feel like maybe we're in the irrational exuberance part of AI, and that was before like all the crazy.
Yeah, I heard things have been going down in terms of AI. Bubble might be popping. Who knows? Certainly, I think the models are starting to slow down in intelligence.
Yeah, I don't know. I still see acceleration, so I don't know.
I think there's not as much opportunity as there were a year ago.
I think there's an enormous, I think this is just what you're talking about is a slowdown in the value of the foundation model layer, but I think there's huge opportunity in the application layer. Maybe the, you overestimate in the short run and underestimate in the long run. And the overestimation in the short run is about foundation models and how important they are. And the underestimation.
I'm skeptical about all of it, both consumer and B2B AI, because on the consumer side, you are like the ideal interface isn't another application. The ideal interface is what Jeff Bezos has. Jeff Bezos isn't booking on Kayak. He tells one of his 10 assistants, book me a flight that makes me feel good, and they already know what he wants and they do it. That's the ideal interface. It's verbal text based to something like ChatGPT. And all these application layers are working on reminding people that they can use it that way. But OpenAI is going to do all of that. On the B2B side, everyone's trying to sell to these legacy companies.
Again, I'll tell you the same thing that I just told you earlier.
Let me quickly say this. Other people sell B2B SaaS to these legacy companies, but what's going to happen is you're going to have one dude who runs a whole company alone, and you have an army of AI doing it. Like, I don't see. Yeah, anyway.
Okay, so that doesn't work for the same reason why you can't do a single shot prompt for your videos.
Today, but in 10 years, in 5 years?
It has to be, right now, you have to use an agentic workflow.
You can't. That's where you have I agree. But these AI companies are so much churn today, and they're going to have more churn in a couple of years once the agents get better.
I think there's a massive opportunity in application layer stuff, and it's creating centaurs. I agree with you. I don't know how long we're going to have centaurs, but I think we're going to have centaurs for some period of time. Every time that I talk to people about how they're using AI in their workflow, Microsoft just laid off 7,000 employees today. They're telling us that they're using it in their workflow and it's getting them better results. I haven't met anyone.
I think some of that is marketing. So
no, but I ask people,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, some people, absolutely. Some people's.
I have to fill out forms for the government, like write SIBRs and shit. And put the document in and it spits something out. And I kind of loosely read it and then send it off to the government. It's great.
It's true. It's weird. Definitely people are doing more work that they wouldn't have done, wouldn't have paid anyone else to do. They're saving time that they wouldn't have done. Maybe they're spending more time with their kids. Some people are getting fired and then some of that work's getting replaced, but it's not necessarily they're getting replaced because of the AI necessarily. I think they're getting replaced because of higher interest rates. I think that
so anytime that you have a recession, you do cost saving measures. Exactly. So it's difficult to see.
Exactly. And so I think what's happening is a lot of these companies are boasting about how they're cost saving, and then they also need an AI story. So they're saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing layoffs, but it's not because we suck. It's because AI is making us more efficient." And the Klarna. Did you see that happen with Klarna? They claimed they replaced all their customer service with AI, and any amount of investigation shows that they didn't. It was terrible, and now they're hiring back humans again, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that was our mistake." And clearly, they were just getting on the AI bandwagon a year ago. And then,
I don't think that AI agents really work for customer service yet, because customer service is a smaller problem than in that sort of, you ask a VC, what software company should I make? And they try to make a personal CRM, which is Samantha, their assistant, does all their stuff. And they're like, just make Samantha. And you're like, Samantha's actually exceedingly difficult to make.
Yeah, she's got a 120 IQ at least, and our AIs do not have that.
Right. And she's from like a nice family, and her dad got her this job with this managing partner, GP, and yeah, totally agree. It's like it's all these people that have tried, even like making a basic calendar app. Remember how many friends of ours have tried to make a calendar app and it like never worked?
But all these little apps are going to get replaced once we create a Samantha ChatGPT that's as good. Like,
I know we've been saying that, but I just don't think that it's there.
It's not there today, but it will get there, and it will churn all these B2B SaaS companies overnight. I don't know.
You and I are completely in alignment there that B2B SaaS is finished.
You think that the Samantha ChatGPT will take longer than humanoid robots? You were telling me humanoid robots are coming next year.
Humanoid robots are coming really fast. I don't know if you like the teleoperated
We're gonna have humanoid robots before we have
Bro, Pick and Place is an incredibly valuable thing.
You don't need human robot for Pick and Place, you just need an arm.
No, because you need to be able to not do Pick and Place. So the thing that's great about the humanoid robots is that it's not specific CapEx, it's general CapEx.
I've got to go.
All right, bye.
Goodbye. All right.